Welcome to Super Memory for Schools program. I am Wang Young. Today we will learn Lesson 3 in the 10th Biology program, Chemical Elements and Water. In this lesson, we will learn about which chemical elements make up the living organisms and the properties and roles of water in life. We must first distinguish between the non-living world and the living world. In Lesson 1, we learned about living world. We know that the living world is divided into many different levels of organization and it has distinctive features, such as metabolism, induction, growth, development, and reproduction. The non-living world is the environment of the living world. It includes things such as sand, gravel, soil, water, light, etc., and natural phenomena such as lightning, fire, etc. We know that there are about 92 elements present in nature, but there are only 25 elements that make up living organisms. We can name some of these 25 elements such as carbon, hydro, oxygen, nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, sulfur, sodium, etc. Of these 25 chemical elements, carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, and nitrogen make up about 95% of living organisms. Carbon element is the most important of all because carbon makes up the diversity of organic macromolecules. Let's look at the structure of carbon. The outer ring has up to 4 electrons and it can bond up to 4 covalent bonds and create a variety of organic macromolecules. And so we have just found out the common characteristics of the chemical elements that make up living matter. In addition, based on their mass in living organisms, they are divided into 2 categories. The first category is macrobiogenic elements, and the second one is microbiogenic elements. The first is macrobiogenic elements. What are macrobiogenic elements? They are elements whose mass is more than or equal to 0.01% of the living organism. We can name some of these elements such as carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, phosphorus, sulfur, potassium, etc. Moreover, these chemical elements play a role in the structure of organic macromolecules. We can name 4 organic macromolecules: carbohydrates, proteins, lipids, and nucleic acids. We will learn these 4 organic macromolecules in turn in the next lessons. I have a better example. Magnesium element. Magnesium element is the nucleus of chlorophyll, which plays an extremely important role in photosynthesis in plants. Or calcium element. Calcium makes up the skeleton of animals and humans. Let's come to the second category, which is microbiogenic element. They are elements whose mass is less than 0.01% of the dry mass of the living organisms. We can name some microbiogenic elements such as manganese, zinc, copper, iron, iodine, etc. Although microbiogenic elements have a very small mass, they play an extremely important role to form hundreds of enzyme systems that catalyze biochemical reactions in the living organisms and structure hormones for the living organisms. Iron element is the nucleus of hemoglobin that forms blood cells, or iodine element. The body only needs a small amount of iodine, but it is a component of the thyroxine produced by the thyroid gland. If we do not consume enough iodine in our meals, we will get goiter. I have a piece of advice for you. You should diversify the meals every day. Firstly, it makes us more appetizing. Secondly, it provides sufficient macrobiogenic elements and microbiogenic elements for our body to develop at its best. Besides, we have to fertilize plants and crops properly. Thus, we have just learned the main characteristics of chemical elements and the classification of elements present in living organisms. Secondly, we will learn about water to see how its properties and roles are important to life. First of all, we have to find out the structure of a water molecule. Water molecules are made up of 1 oxygen atom and 2 hydrogen atoms. The oxygen molecule and the 2 hydrogen atoms are bonded by a covalent bond. However, the shared pair of electrons shifts towards the oxygen, making the oxygen negatively charged and the hydrogen positively charged. This gives the oxygen molecule its polarity. Thus, thanks to the polarity, the water molecules bond with each other. Between 2 adjacent water molecules, it can be linked by hydrogen bonds. Hydrogen bonds are weak bonds. However, in a network of many water molecules, hydrogen bonds have their own effects. Let's consider the properties of water molecules by their polarity and weak hydrogen bonds. Water is a polar solvent. Therefore, it is capable of dissolving polar substances. Secondly, water volume is larger when it is in solid state. However, it is lighter than in liquid state. Thirdly, water has surface tension. Here is what it is. We easily observe some small animals such as insects that can float on the water. That's because of its small weight. Secondly, its feet are waterproof. And thirdly, surface tension makes it possible for these animals to float and walk on water. Now, we will talk about the role of water in living cells to see what role water plays. It is said that water is the most important liquid on Earth. In living cells, water has four main characteristics. Firstly, water is the building block of cells. Secondly, water is the solvent that dissolves substances. Because it is a polar solvent, it is capable of dissolving polar substances. Thirdly, water is the medium for carrying out biochemical reactions taking place in cells. Water has a thermoregulatory ability to keep cells at a constant temperature so that cells can grow and develop. All in all, we can see that water occupies a very large content in the cell with an important role, and specifically in the human body, water makes up 70% of the body mass. Therefore, always make sure to provide enough water for the body every day. We should drink about 2 liters of water per day, equivalent to about 8 glasses of water. There is a question. When looking for life on other planets, why must people first figure out if there is water? How will we answer this question? We will answer that because water has 4 main roles. Firstly, water is the structural component of cells. Secondly, it is the solvent that dissolves substances. Thirdly, it is the medium of biochemical reactions in the cell. Fourthly, it regulates the cell's temperature. All in all, we know that cells are the most important structural units of life. Thus, we have just learned about the properties and roles of water in living organisms, as well as understanding why people say that water is the most important solvent for life. And this is the end of the lesson. See you again in the next videos in Super Memory for Schools program.